And what war did you serve in?
I served in the European theater in the World War II.
What branch of service?
I was in the Army,
What was your highest rank?
Technician 5.
Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I volunteered through the draft board.
And you were living in West Haven at the time?
Yes.
What were you doing?
I was working in Winchester's repeating arms manufacturing, ammunition for the war.
And why did you join?
I joined because I feel that it was time for me to enter the service. I had already had 2 brothers there, and my younger brother and I both volunteered the same day.
And why did you pick the service branch that you joined?
The reason why I picked the Army because I get seasick for the Navy, as far as the Navy is concerned.
And do you recall your first days in the service?
Well, the first days in the service was at the induction center at Fort Devens, which we were rushed through different tests and examination. We only stayed there a little over 24 hours, then we were shipped out.
And where did you go?
Well, we went to Camp Polk, Louisiana.
Do you remember boot camp?
Oh yes, I remember boot camp. We didn't call it boot camp. We called it boot camp was more or less the Marines term. As far as basic training, well, we did the customary things: calisthenics, drill, close order drill, going on the firing range, a typical Army routine that was given to everybody at the time.
Do you remember your instructors?
Well, I had one of the instructors was Lieutenant Hyde, and most of the instruction was done by the cadre of sergeants. When we went to Camp Polk, all of us there was the cadre, and we were the first inductees there, and we more or less had to build up the camp.
And when did you leave the United States?
November, I think Thanksgiving Day, November, let's see, 44, 40, I think it's 44.
And where exactly did you go?
We first went to England at a camp there called Tidworth, which was a few miles outside of Hanover, England. And we stayed there until late December. Then we were shipped across the channel to into the European theater.
What did you do while you were in England?
Well, we did mostly guard duty and get prepared for the action we were supposed to be going to go to sea soon. And most of it was we were waiting for orders to move.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what it felt like waiting for orders?
Well, we were kept busy with instructions and class and whatnot, and we were given a pass once in a while to visit Hanover, and then it was time to pull out. We left.
So, where did you go when you left England?
We landed in Le Havre in France, and then we started our journey through France.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, the only thing I could tell you that it was cold, very cold, and we traveled in half tracks, which is all steel and whatnot, which didn't help the situation as far as being cold is concerned. And we made various stops. We stopped at Nancy, and went into Germany, and we were supposed to observe baptism of fire in Germany, but instead of observing it, we were called there because the situation was kind of bad, and we had to go into Nenning, Germany, which was our first encounter with the Germans.
Do you remember what that was like?
Well, the first night there was only a couple of houses that were occupied by the Americans. The rest of the village was occupied by Germans. And the first night, I remember we were all crowded down in one. My squad and platoon, we were in a house there, and we all so crowded that we slept standing up that night. And the next morning, we went into try to take the houses from the Germans, and we took a few houses, and there was a German tank was running up and down the village loose, which gave us a little trouble. And that's when everything started. And from then on, we kept processing. The next day, we kept moving on and on.
And where did you ultimately end up?
Where I ended up in Germany, you mean when I was evacuated? I went in January. I was evacuated, and I went to the hospital because I couldn't move because I was frozen after spending many hours in a foxhole. See, after we took the town of Nenning, my platoon went up on the hill into the foxholes, and that's where I was, frozen. And after we were relieved there, we stayed at this barn, and I took off my Arctics and shoes. And next morning I couldn't get them on, so I filled the Arctics with straw, and we continued for the next 2 or 3 days like that until I couldn't move anymore. So they took me to the hospital.
And where was the hospital?
The only hospital I remember was in France. It was a MASH unit. Hagy-le-Pew. And then from there, they pushed me back to Paris, hospital in Paris, and they were thinking about sending me back to the States, but at that time they stopped sending the GIs back to the States because it was too much trouble. I mean, things got very nasty, and plus they were having problems here in the States with the strikes and whatnot. And then from Paris, they finally thawed out, is the only word I could tell you, and they sent me back to a replacement depot. Then I went back and I joined my unit again.
Where was your unit when you rejoined them?
I don't remember what town it was. I mean, there's so many of these small towns that we used to, our job was to occupy 3 towns a day. In other words, we were in a mop-up unit. And we were with the 2nd Division. They would go through and we would mop up what was left with because they kept pushing ahead, and we used to go from one town to the next. In one town, we took so fast that our own artillery was bombing it to soften up this town for the next day, which we were supposed to go in the next day. But we were all there already, and we had to They had to send orders back to stop bombing it because we were already there.
And
I mean, we moved so fast that I don't remember the towns. You know. Let's see, there's only one town that I remember where we stayed, and I managed to get the flag, the Nazi flag that was flying over there. So I guess I don't even remember the name of the town, but that's the one town that stood out in my mind. Mm-hmm. And then the last town we were in was Habsburg, Germany, when the war ended. That's where we were. At the time they go ahead. You want
no.
No, at the time they divided the Germany into 4 sectors, as history tells you, and we so happened to be in the British zone, the zone that the British were going to take over. So they sent us to Czechoslovakia. So we ended up in Czechoslovakia after the war.
What did it feel like knowing that the war was over?
Pardon me?
What did it feel like knowing that the war was over?
Oh, naturally, everybody was joyful and everything. And it so happened that we were in such a small town where we really couldn't celebrate it in the manner we could if you were in Paris or someplace. But everybody was happy and everything, and they celebrated in whatever manner they could.
So what did you do in Czechoslovakia?
When I was in Czechoslovakia, they transferred me to the service company, and they put me in special service, because when I was in the States here, I went to special service school. So I was in Czechoslovakia. I used to show the movies to the different battalions in Czechoslovakia, and that's what I did, and took care of the rations until I was called to go to Munich to work in the post office.
And why were you called to work in the post office?
Because back in the States, I became postal clerk. The mail clerk there was old. He was over 39, and at the time they passed the rule that people over 39 could get out of the service. So I fell into the spot after he left.
And what was that like, working with the mail in Munich?
It was very interesting. Very interesting. Met different people. Paul Lucas, the actor, he sent a package. Met the boxer there. I forgot what his name now, and met different Dixie Dunbar, different USO personality. And that's when we got the idea to do the show. 3 of us there, myself and 3 other employees. And we set up the show, and as best as we could. It was supposed to be a one-night thing, but well, it turned out to be bigger than that. And Mickey Rooney came down with a special service officer to overlook, to see if it was worth setting on the road. And so we finally opened up, and one of the persons in the show was very fluent in German. He was a German descent, and that's how we got the costumes from a German movie studio that went in, and so then we went on the road, and the first performance we did was in Regensburg, and General Trescott, he was the commanding general of the Third Army there. He took over for Patton after he was killed in the automobile accident, and he liked the show. And we opened up with just a German piano player, and he liked the show, and he thought it was worthwhile. So we went to Garmisch, and he said they sent us there for for a rest. In the meantime, he got us a USO band from a defunct USU unit. So we had a 6-piece band from then on in the show.
Great. So you were in the USO organization?
No, we were the Army. We were Army. What the idea was, because I guess the USO maybe got expensive for the government or whatever, or couldn't get people enough to go over there. They got what they call the CATs, civilian actors and technicians, and they were deployed with different Army units to develop whatever talent they had within the soldiers. Therefore, you wouldn't need the USO as much. So we applied. We got 5 girls for our show, and we rehashed the show for the and then we went on the road. And one of the girls was Marilyn Maloney. She was Senator Maloney's daughter from Connecticut. She became the director of the show. And in fact, through her, we were able to see the Nuremberg trials for one day. So I saw Gorin and the rest of them there on trial and whatnot for one day.
Oh. And how long did your show go on tour?
Went on tour from, let's see, about 5 months. It was sometime at the end of '45, and I ended up in April of '46 was the last show I did in Vienna, and from what I heard later on, a couple of weeks later, the Army broke up the show. That's what I heard through the mail when I came home.
So in April '46, you were discharged?
Yes, from Fort Devens.
Fort Devens. And what did you do when you got home to the United States?
After the war? Well, I worked with my father, and he was a contractor. And then from then, I went into the post office. And I worked in the post office for 37 years. I retired in 1985.
How did you stay in touch with your family while you were overseas?
We had what they had called V-mail. They used to write out on these letters, and they would photograph it, and that's how we used to. They used it for V-mail because it didn't take up much room, on the ships and whatnot. Did you ever see a V-mail?
Yes. Yeah. What was the food like that you ate?
Well, I tell you, in combat, we only got a hot meal once in a while, and we had these rations and canned rations, and it was so cold they were frozen. If we could, we'd build a kind of a fire and put them in a hot pan and of water. And when I was with the show, well, then we were treated a lot better. When I was in Nuremberg, we were stationed in Nuremberg with the post office. We had a nice mess hall, and the food was great. And in fact, my brother-in-law used to come down to visit me just to eat our food. He was living on pork and beans. So, but the food wasn't bad when we got it.
Did you always have plenty of supplies?
Well, you see, in the Army, you work with a unit. I mean, regardless what people say, from my experience, we didn't know who was on the right, who was on the left. I mean, it's so intense, that, in war and whatnot, that your outfit may be fine. You may get plenty of everything, and people in the next town are starving or having. So it's hard to tell. I mean, but as far as my unit is concerned, we seem to be well equipped with ammunition and whatnot. I didn't see any shortage of it.
Did you do anything for good luck?
Pray. Nothing special. Nothing special. I remember one experience there. We got these PWs, and myself and this other GI, who was of German descent, were ordered to take him to the PW camp, and we were taking him along, and he's talking to them in German, and we came to a fork in the road, and we started going to the right. I yelled, "Halt!" Halt in German and English is practically the same words. So I said to my GI buddy, I says, "How do you know this is the way to the PW camp?" He said, "Well, I asked them." I said, "Baloney, we're going to take the other road." So we took the other road.
And did you get to the camp?
Yes.
How often did you get to go on leave?
Not often. No, in combat, not my unit. Like I say, people don't understand. You see these war movies where they know who's here. We didn't know. I mean, everything. It isn't like nowadays. Our war was secret. It isn't like movie cameras were there like today's wars and whatnot. I mean, it was a different thing altogether. Now, and today, all you got to do is read in the paper, and they can tell you how many troops got over there, where they're stationed. In my war, that didn't exist. Everything was quiet, and but I don't know. We did okay. I mean, as far as what the good luck you say, that's good.
What you did on leave?
On leave. Well, we didn't get any leave. The only leave I got was when I was at the replacement depot before they sent us back to the outfit. Got an overnight pass to Paris, and I went to see the Follies. I mean, but that's outside of that. Not for us. I say, see, what happens to other units, that's something else. I remember one time we traveled quite a few miles to get a shower in the trucks, which was great. We got new uniform, clean uniforms. By the time we come back from the dust in the road, we were back where we started from. We used to clean ourselves out of a helmet. So, but like I say, the other units, they may have been lucky. I don't know. It all depends where you're stationed, who's in command, how the situation is at the time. And it's hard to tell.
Did you see any USO shows before you were in that show?
Yeah, we were the only show that I've seen prior to going on the road, except the show that we used to follow. In fact, I used the stooge for one of the acts there, and it was the Bob Hope show in Munich. That's the only show that I've seen over there.
Mm-hmm. Were you able to travel anywhere after the war was over, before you went home?
Well, yeah. When we were with the show, we were free all day, unless we were rehearsing, and at night for the show. During the day, we were on our own. We went to different places, and went to Garmisch and saw the Passion Theater. Went skiing there, and whatever was around, we got to see.
Do you recall any particularly humorous events?
Humorous events? Let's see. Well, well, I mean, outside the theater, being in the theater. See, I can't recall right now.
That's all right. Did anyone ever play pranks on each other?
Well, not not overseas. In the States, yeah, they short shoot you and they turn your footlocker over, things like that. But in the States, we didn't have time for that. We were just living, eating, sleeping, doing what we had to do, and not much time for that kind of stuff. At least, when I'm speaking for my unit. Next unit, you can talk to somebody else with some other unit. They can tell you 101 stories. And that's how it is. I mean, every outfit is different.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Well, the day that my service ended was at Fort Devens here, and yeah, I remember it. I had this Air Force jacket that they took away from me because it wasn't GI, because an Air Force fella gave it to me, and they gave me. I got over $300 back pay that I didn't get when I was in overseas because I didn't need it. I didn't need it because we used to get rations, and I used to trade some of my rations for films. That's how I got all these pictures there. Because when we were in this town, we confiscated a carload, a box of cameras, and each one of the squad got one. So that's.
What would be included in a day's worth of rations?
Well, in combat, it would be a sea ration. It would be maybe a can of hash, a can of pork and beans, or you get the other type of rations where we have crackers, cheese, a small can of tuna. That would be the rations. Then once in a while, when we were lucky to get a hot meal, then that's something different.
Mm-hmm. What did you do in the days and weeks after you were home in Connecticut?
Well, first of all, I was fortunate. My father was in the contractor, so I worked with him, and my job was demolished or it was eliminated, so I couldn't go back to Winchester's. So I was on what they used to call the 5220 Club. You get $20 a week for 52 weeks, and every couple of weeks you would have to go to the unemployment and see if they had any job for you, and that's what I did. Until then, I finally took the exam for the post office, and I got in the post office.
Did you go to school at all?
No, on the GI, you won't believe this. I went to umpire school. I went to McGowan's umpire school in Florida for 6 weeks, and to be an umpire. And I used to umpire around here, and part time because I was working in Winchester's.
And the GI Bill paid for it?
Yeah.
For umpire school?
Yeah, they paid for it. I went to Cocoa Beach. That's where.
Did you make any close friendships while you were in the service?
You do one, yes. I made a very close friendship. In fact, last weekend, a fella from Pennsylvania that I was close to was in town because his son graduated from the University of New Haven. And we went out to dinner. Yeah, I made some close friendships, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you still stay in touch with some of them?
Yeah, I stay in touch with Christmas cards and whatnot.
Did Did you join any veterans organizations?
Veterans? You sure do. I belong to 6 of them.
Oh.
I was, I'm in the DAV, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Battle of the Bulge, Purple Heart, American Legion. Purple Heart, I held every office in the chapter, and I was commander of the state commander in 1972. And I got a whole wall full of citations from the Purple Heart in the other room.
You were in the Battle of the Bulge?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Well, yeah, we were on the tail end of it at the Battle of the Bulge. We weren't in the main thing, but I don't remember too much of it. I mean, we just did what we had to do, and that was it. I mean, see, we were with the Third Army, and the Battle of the Bulge erupted, and we were sent up to the Ninth Army. General Simpson was the head of the. That's how we got involved in the Battle of the Bulge.
Where you returned to the Third Army.
Well, we returned to the Third Army when I got involved in Munich, because Munich was the headquarters for the Third Army. That's how I got back to the Third Army.
And what did you go on to do as a career after the war? Post office?
Yeah. That was my one and only career.
And how long did you work for the post office?
37 years.
When did you retire?
1985. At the age of 65. Well, almost 65. I retired in January, and in March I became 65.
Did your military experience influence the way you think about war or about the military in general?
You know, it's funny. All I got to do is all I think of it is good. I mean, I'm not the type of person who's hateful or. We did a job, and that was it. I mean, I think we did a good job, and I'm not one of these persons that gripes or whatnot. I'm the type of a person who takes what it comes, and I make the best of it. As far as war is concerned, well, war is hell, as you know. Nobody likes war, and I don't know what you want me to think about it. I mean, it's awful. It's not what I prefer, but you do what you got to do.
Have you ever attended any reunions?
Yes, I attended a couple of 8th Armored Division reunion in New York, in Boston, and in Philly. And I got together with a few of the boys I was in the service with there, yes.
And what were the reunions like?
Well, it's telling a world story. One thing about the average GI that I know, never talks about the bad part of the war. Always talks about the girls, the good times, the jokes they play on one another, and things like that. And that's what we did. I mean, you very seldom find a GI that I know of that talks about the horrors of war, stuff that we've been through. But you always talk about the good times.
Is there anything you would like to add that we have not covered so far?
Well, anything I could add would just be an opinion. As far as I think these other wars, Korea and the ones that are all following up to the modern time, all learned from our war. Mm-hmm. As far as get a better equipment, better food. They say the rations now are a heck of a lot different. You got more of a choice. And I think a lot of good came out of it in that sense. And I don't believe in the way things are done today, as far as putting everything in the papers, where our troops are, where we're going, what we're doing. I don't believe in that, because in WWII everything was a secret, loose lips sink ship, and so forth and so on. I think everything was on the QT. Our mail was censored. It was a different war, different atmosphere. And I feel all this freedom of the press and all that stuff, I think they go too far as putting the GI or the servicemen's life at stake, because they expose too much. Mm-hmm. And who cares? I mean, who cares where the 101 Airborne is? Actually, nobody, but the enemy does. So that's my opinion as far as modern times is concerned. Too much freedom of the press, and I think it's bad.
Is there anything else you would like to add? Is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, I don't know. I think things are, going pretty well as far as the services are concerned and whatnot. I mean, the only thing I could add is something for the modern, what's going on now, which I don't think I'm in a position to talk about, And that's about it. I mean, I don't know. I think in WW2 we did a great job. I think the people were great in the country. Everybody was together. There wasn't this disharmony like it is today. Anti this, anti that. Everybody pulled together. They went out without stockings, without tires. With coffee was rationed, steaks, meat was rationed, butter was rationed. Everybody got along. Everybody took it with a grain of salt, and we're 100% for the servicemen. Today, well, things are different. Everybody gripes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thank you very much for your service, and I thank you for this interview today.
Thank you. You're welcome.